while working in New England on whale watching, I got to know a guy called, he was also invited to come up and work on the Rock. This guy, Mike Williamson, who was a lifelong friend. And Mike and I spoke about, my idea of working up here. He'd had other projects working in Newfoundland with some people, and eventually I came back up in '79 with one person who was my assistant, and we had important sidebar to this is that I used to like going to a little bar in Woods Hole called the Captain Kidd, where a lot of scientists would come in, and I remember sitting at the bar and talking to this other guy who was just getting in the field called David Matilla. And we sat there together on many occasions talking about whales, and he was a sailor, and so I was always kind of fascinated by what he did with his sailboat, which he lived on and had anchored out in the harbor just off of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. And he had been working on humpbacks off Puerto Rico, but that was in the wintertime, and he didn't really need the use of his inflatable or motor during the summer at that point. And he had, I think, been hired to work on a whale watching boat out of Plymouth as well. And so he very kindly let me use the boat, and so I put that on the car I had. I got a rack for it, and we put I think we put part of the boat on the rack and part of it in the back behind the fold-down rear seat and the motor, and pile all the junk we could in there. And so Dave Matilla was instrumental in me getting going up there as well through the use of this boat. We used it for one season because I think after that he needed it for other things. And then so many people help you through this whole process. There was another gentleman down at Fisheries in Woods Hole who got me a little bit of funding the second year to get a motor and a boat. And I was always pretty good at wheeling and dealing for equipment. Not always very good at getting funding for things, but I was good at getting gear. So we had that boat, and so you needed an inflatable to be able to do this work. And so we decided to leave, since that was our boat at that time, up in the village. We found somebody in the village. The people in the village thought we were kind of weird. I think probably most places where marine mammalogists show up, that might be the case. But here we are in this little village at that time, about 800 people on the Quebec North Shore. The road had barely made it. I mean, there was a dirt road the first year that took us 4 hours to do about 200 kilometers, and the next year it was paved, but we still had to drive down into the riverbeds. The bridges weren't all finished. So it was quite an adventure. And one of the pilots in Sept-Îles, the closest big city to where Mingan is, had said, well, his parents came from Long Point of Mingan. So he said, why don't you go and see my parents when you're there? They'll help you out. You can put your tents on a beach and your boat there, and everything will be fine. So I said, okay, thanks. And so I walked into these poor people's house, and I was barefoot because I tended to be barefoot in the summer and kind of long-haired and so forth. And they were eating lunch, and they looked up and saw me come in, and for some reason they thought I looked like somebody from California. So I became sort of the Californian, even though I'm from New England. And they very kindly allowed me to pitch we had 2 tents on the beach and put the boat out there, and everybody helped us, and we became sort of a curiosity. And then over the years, whenever we come back in the spring, the people in the village it's sort of like the swallows that come back to a certain place. They sort of figure, oh, okay, the summer's starting, these people are back to do their field work. And the first year we were in tents. The second year we went there, we stayed a little longer. The first year was just a month. The second year we stayed probably about 3 months, and we rented a small trailer type house that was there in the village. And I remember this local fisherman helped us with snow crab, which was just getting to be known at that time, and fish and so on. So we were able to survive all right for those months, and had a little bit bigger crew. There was a guy called Fred Wenzel who came and joined us, now works at NOAA down in Woods Hole, and it was instrumental in helping the station get going. Mike Williamson as well came for a while. So that's how, just slew over the years of different people that came and contributed to the project, some that stayed for quite a while, and others just for one season, and so on. I think that's probably the same for most research projects of this nature over time, from what I've learned.